We're joined tonight by Margaret Brennan, the host of CBS's Face the Nation, seen Sundays here on CBS 42. Margaret, thanks for being with us. Let's start by talking about this summit happening next week between President Trump and the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. You interviewed Rex Tillerson earlier this year and talked about on 60 Minutes how he didn't really ever want this job. It seems Mike Pompeo's quite the opposite. And now, as America's chief diplomat, he said today that nukes must go before the sanctions on North Korea will be lifted. How much credit do you think the Secretary of State deserves for this summit taking place?
Well, many watching the development of these negotiations since the Trump administration began would give some credit to the former Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, for coming up with a game plan, but give a lot of credit right now to the current Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, who was then CIA director, for getting us to the point where the two leaders are sitting down to talk directly to each other about what they may, in fact, be willing to give in and give up. What I would say is that Secretary Pompeo is very much the lead on North Korea policy. He is going to be in the room for at least part of these face-to-face negotiations between the president and the leader of North Korea. And it's ultimately going to be his job to deliver on all of the nuts and bolts, all the details to actually work out some kind of arms control agreement, because the president's lowering expectations and saying this first summit, it's going to be about chemistry. It's going to be about the beginning of a process. What he's saying there is there's a lot more work to be done, and it may take a lot longer than some are hoping.
You've covered multiple administrations and been around Washington a long time. Is there a contrast, as it seems to me, between someone like Mike Pompeo and Donald Trump saying, I don't feel like I need to prepare at all. I've prepared my whole life for this. What's the mood in Washington going into this week?
Well, this is a very overtired Washington, but it has been because this news cycle has been on hyperdrive for so long. This summit has been on, it's been off, it's been on again, and now that it's actually happening, to be quite frank with you, it seems almost more of a media event. There are 3,000 estimated reporters who are supposed to be in Singapore covering it, according to the Singaporean government, than an actual diplomatic summit like some of those that I've covered in the past. Usually diplomats like to work in the quiet, under the radar, get agreements actually hammered out before they invite in the cameras and the reporters. This is the exact opposite of that. And so because you have two very unpredictable leaders, President Trump and Kim Jong-un, walking into the room together, Washington is really sort of holding its breath to say, what could happen, because the stakes are so incredibly high. Remember, Kim Jong-un is walking in a position of strength because he has a nuclear arsenal that can threaten the U.S. homeland, and no leader before him has been able to say that. His father and his grandfather certainly didn't have that leverage over an American president, and he has that when he sits down with President Trump.
Margaret Brennan, an always busy Washington, D.C. ahead of the summit happening this week in North Korea. We'll see you Sunday on Face the Nation. Margaret, thank you.
Thank you.